When archaeologists first breached the sands of the Valley of the Kings, they uncovered a massive, sealed time capsule. Inside the burial chamber were over 5,000 distinct, perfectly preserved artifacts. For decades, the public and academic narrative defined Tutankhamun by his youth and early death. Historical consensus painted him as a fragile boy king, a symbolic figurehead kept safely away from the brutal physical realities of ruling an ancient empire. An unusual object placed right beside his body complicated that assumption. It was a dagger, featuring a dark metallic blade secured to a gold handle. At first glance, early researchers assumed the blade was crafted from standard materials of the era, like common bronze or a typical early iron forged in a standard terrestrial furnace. This chart shows the elemental makeup of the blade compared to typical earth-forged iron. Instead of matching terrestrial ore, the data reveals distinct high levels of nickel and cobalt inside the dagger. Those specific chemical markers mean this iron wasn't mined from the ground. It fell from space. The blade was forged directly from a meteorite. A purely symbolic, physically weak ruler would have little use for a highly complex, cosmically forged weapon. Its presence demands a forensic re-examination of the thousands of other items packed into his tomb. Moving past the dagger, the sheer volume of the burial cache comes into focus. The chamber was deliberately packed with a massive inventory of royal property. Disassembled among the treasures were 6 complete chariots. These vehicles were light, fast, and engineered specifically for high mobility across rough desert terrain. Alongside the vehicles, the cache included a staggering collection of ranged weapons. Specifically, recurve bows, designed with tips that curve away from the archer to store more energy, and hundreds of finely crafted arrows. The most telling piece of the armory is a tunic made of layered leather scales. It is constructed physically to absorb blows, and its materials show distinct signs of degradation. A purely ceremonial costume would remain largely pristine. The wear and tear heavily integrated into the leather fibers indicates someone wore this armor in harsh physical conditions. The inclusion of damaged functional protection alongside rapid mobility vehicles points directly to a young king who was physically preparing for and likely participating in actual warfare. Ancient Egyptian artisans frequently carved idealized depictions of their leaders into stone, showing them dominating enemies from moving chariots. For a long time, historians dismissed these specific carvings of Tutankhamun as state-sponsored fiction. They assumed the artists were simply projecting an image of traditional strength onto a frail teenager. Yet, the recurve bows, the custom-fitted leather armor, and the specific chariot designs found inside the tomb match the weapons in the carvings perfectly. When the physical arsenal perfectly mirrors the stone reliefs, we have to evaluate those carvings differently. They look less like political exaggeration and more like a documented journalistic record of actual military campaigns. The objects in the room point to a life of physical violence, but the ultimate piece of evidence is the primary source itself, the biological remains of the 19-year-old king. Researchers utilized a CT scan, combining thousands of X-rays into a 3D digital model to conduct a modern autopsy. The scan exposes severe structural damage. The bones in his left leg show signs of a massive, complex fracture that occurred while he was still alive. Biomechanical analysis shows this shattering trauma doesn't come from a simple fall. It requires a massive, high-velocity impact. Given the lightweight, fast chariot stacked in his tomb and the documented functional armor, a violent crash at high speeds fits the skeletal data perfectly. The frail boy king is an outdated concept. The skeletal trauma, combined with a tomb full of battle-tested gear, reveals an active military leader who lived and likely died in a brutal, violent environment. It took an out-of-place anomaly to prompt this entire investigation. A single dark blade forged from a falling star forced us to look closer, rewriting our understanding of an ancient life.